On the broadcast tonight, President Park Geun-hye decides to retain the country's current prime minister after two possible replacements for the job abandon their nominations because of questions over past behavior. After a 6-month hiatus amid rising cross-border tensions, the two Koreas resumed talks on managing the Kaesong Joint Industrial Park. $370.3 billion US. That's how much the nation's government ministries want earmarked for next year's budget. That's up 6% from this year. World Cup at a glance. We have all the action from day 14 and a look ahead at the big day. It's all or nothing for Team Korea, even if they can't pull off a miracle win and push through to the next round. Millions of supporters in Korea will be looking for a good showing to restore lost pride. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It's 5 a.m. in New York, 6 in Sao Paulo, and 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 26th of June here in Seoul. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. President Park Geun-hye has made a decision on her new prime minister, and we see a familiar face.
Right, her new or old, depending on how you see it. After seeing her last two prime minister nominees bow out before getting anywhere near a confirmation hearing, instead of naming a third, she will retain current Prime Minister Chung Hong-won.
Our correspondent Choi Yoo-sun has the details.
In a surprise announcement on Thursday, the presidential office said President Park had rejected Prime Minister Chung Hong-won's previous offer to resign and asked him to continue working for the nation with a sense of duty. Prime Minister Chung had expressed a wish to step down in the wake of the Sewol-ho ferry accident 2 months ago. It is the first time in Korea's constitutional history that a prime minister will be staying on after rendering a resignation. The presidential press secretary said President Park, who has promised a massive restructuring of the government and a bolstering of the national safety system following April's ferry tragedy, went through great pains before making the latest decision.
The administrative vacuum and division of public opinion intensified due to the previous nominations. The president has decided the situation can no longer be left alone.
In regards to the presidential office's personnel verification system, which has been heavily criticized after the recent back-to-back nominee withdrawals, a new senior secretary will be put in charge of finding people to fill positions and verifying their credentials. Upon Thursday's announcement, the prime minister vowed to pour all his energy into correcting irregularities in Korean society and making the country a safer place to live. He also said when necessary, he would not hesitate to offer his views to the president on state matters. The ruling party said the president's decision was understandable and that she had put a priority on minimizing the administrative vacuum and moving forward with the running of state affairs. The main opposition, on the other hand, criticized the administration for failing to meet the people's expectations to reform Korean society in the aftermath of the ferry disaster. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
Come up with an innovation strategy for the nation's manufacturing industry. Well, that was the mission President Park Geun-hye presented to Korea's business leaders on this Thursday.
At a luncheon with the heads of nationwide chambers of commerce and industry, the president said the so-called 3.0 strategy should focus on the convergence of manufacturing and information technology.
Right, that is a shift from the previous innovation strategy, which centered on light industry and equipment. The Korean leader said the nation was poised to lead the next smart industrial revolution thanks to its advanced manufacturing sector, IT infrastructure, and talented personnel.
Let's shift our focus up north. The two Koreas held talks on matters related to their jointly run Kaesong industrial complex this Thursday.
Right, the talks which took place in North Korea's border city of Kaesong just came to an end less than an hour ago. And for more, we have our Hwang Sung-hee on the line. Sung-hee, what are we learning?
Well, unfortunately, it seems today's talks ended without any fruitful results. We don't have too much information on the meeting just yet, but apparently the officials called it a day without holding a closing session. So for now, we do not know if they made any progress on key issues like the installation of an internet connection there and the implementation of an electronic entry system to facilitate the commute of South Korean workers. This was the first time in 6 months for the Joint Committee of the Business Park to meet for talks. The quarterly meeting has been at a standstill since December last year, and that's when inter-Korean relations soured following military drills between Seoul and Washington.
Well, hopefully they're gradually warming up to something more significant. The factory zone, Sung-hee, seems to be greatly influenced by inter-Korean tensions. We also saw it close down last year, right?
That's right. The Kaesong complex, which opened in the early 2000s, is one of the last remaining symbols of inter-Korean cooperation. Around 52,000 North Koreans work for more than 120 South Korean factories at Kaesong, and the complex, like you said, Daniel, is greatly influenced by the state of inter-Korean ties. Last year, the factory zone sat idle for 5 months after North Korea unilaterally closed it down in protest of UN sanctions following its third nuclear test and joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. Ahead of today's talks, some said that the meeting could be seen as a sign of Pyongyang's willingness to thaw the current icy relations between the two Koreas. But it looks like we will have to wait and see whether the two sides even set a date for their next meeting, guys.
Well, thank you, Sung-hee, for that. That was Arirang News Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee reporting live from the ministry.
Moving on, the Korean government is busy working on its budget proposals for next year.
With a focus on fiscal soundness, some sectors will see their budgets cut when 2015 rolls around. Others related to the economy and safety may see a boost. Our Kim Ji-yeon with this report.
The government has cut out a larger portion of next year's budget for promoting public safety and the economy, money that may come from reduced investments in social overhead capital projects, among others. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance said the budgetary scale for 2015 is around $371 billion, up 6% from this year's budget. It's the smallest rate of increase in 5 years, mainly due to the government strengthening its budgetary rules. It implemented a pay-as-you-go system, a practice of financing new spending commitments with currently available funds. This means when ministries introduce new bills that require increased spending, the funding must come through cuts to other bills. The ministry has already requested cuts to projects related to social overhead capital and the environmental and agriculture sectors. The government also plans to cut down on the number of projects that overlap and has asked ministries and local municipalities to strengthen cooperation for efficiency. The ministry plans to finalize its budget proposal by September this year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Revitalizing the economy tops President Park Geun-hye's to-do list, and that's what she wants from her finance minister designate Choi Kyung-hwan.
Mr. Che has suggested a policy of boosting domestic demand by making it easier for households to borrow money.
But economists warn that the nation's household debt is already at dangerous levels. Connie Kim has the details.
Korea's household debt has grown so much that it's threatening to hurt the future growth of the economy. And that's the warning by a major government think tank. Korea's household debt topped $1 trillion last year, which is 85.6% of the country's GDP. Now that's beyond the 85% threshold where the think tank says consumers start cutting back on spending, which could spell problems for the incoming economic policy chief. Finance Minister designate Choi Kyung-hwan wants to encourage households to borrow more to buy homes and other real estate as a means of spurring economic activity.
If regulators lower bars for lending, it will revitalize the housing and construction sector in the short term. However, in the long term, the overall economy is expected to become vulnerable. In that sense, second thoughts must be given before they start easing limits for housing loans for the sake of short-term benefits.
Credit rating agency Fitch has also echoed the warning, saying easing regulations on home purchases could aggravate the already serious household debt problem. The agency underscored household debt as a risk factor that could threaten the country's sovereign position. Korea's household debt to disposable income reached its highest level ever at 163% last year, higher than other advanced economies such as the United Kingdom at 152% and the United States at 111%. With household debt reaching dangerously high levels in Korea, the incoming finance minister has a tough job on his hands. He'll be tasked with bringing mounting debt levels under control while also boosting domestic consumption. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Korea has become the chosen destination for a growing number of medical tourists.
The number of foreigners who came to the nation last year for the purposes of medical procedures broke the 200,000 mark for the first time ever.
And the Korean government is doing more to even further boost the booming industry. Well, our Yudian joins us live in the studio to tell us more on the emerging trend. So, Lian, it's now legal for hospitals to own hotels and even tourism agencies.
You're right, and that's expected to boost the already surge in foreign patients.
So what's the main reason behind the surge? Is it a no-brainer?
Well, basically, Korea provides high-quality service at cheaper prices. You might be surprised to find out that Korea is actually ranked in 4th place in terms of medical service in the OECD. And if you take a look at the 5-year survival rate of all cancers, the Koreans' rate is higher than countries like Japan or the United States. Now, as for the cost, let's take cesarean sections, for example. In Korea, the procedure costs 1/10 of what it does in the United States. The recent boom in medical tourism in Korea follows in step with a general global trend, with the market's value jumping 2.5 times over the past 8 years.
Well, Korea is renowned for being the mecca of cosmetic surgery, right? And is that still the biggest reason why foreign patients are coming to Korea?
Well, plastic surgery still remains a main draw, but the types of surgeries that foreigners actually seek out when they come to Korea is actually more varied than you might think. Plastic surgery only takes up about 13% of all medical treatments for foreigners in Korea. Internal medicine and family medicine are actually quite popular as well. But as you mentioned, plastic surgery is still the most well-known service, but there are efforts underway to spread the wealth. Take a look.
Rizk Oksana is on vacation from Ukraine and has decided to spend a few days taking part in a special medical tour program.
Before coming here, I knew that Koreans cared a lot about their looks, so I wanted to experience Korea's medical cosmetic service.
Her tour package begins at an Oriental medicine clinic, where she undergoes a special treatment to improve skin elasticity. It's then off to a health center that specializes in endoscopy procedures. For the Seoul district of Gangnam, the medical tour program is merely the beginning of bigger plans. In the future, we're going to combine medical services and tourist destinations into one package. The efforts come as no surprise. Since 2009, when the central government made it legal for hospitals to accept foreign patients, there's been a boom with an average yearly growth rate of 37%.
While foreigners enjoy a wider assortment of medical services, plastic surgery still remains the biggest draw. For that, the most popular destination is Gangnam, home to nearly half of the country's plastic surgery clinics.
Riding the wave, plastic surgery clinics are investing more in overseas advertisement. This plastic surgery clinic has what it calls a Chinese coordinator.
I work on advertisements on Chinese portal sites like Baidu and Weibo, and also work on the Chinese version of the clinic's homepage.
Doctors here say interest in Korean cosmetic trends has spiked thanks to a greater social media presence.
Nowadays, foreigners keep up to date on the popular cosmetic surgeries in Korea through TV programs or the internet. So the types of surgeries they are seeking are becoming more diverse.
Looks like Gangnam Style did a part in helping promote Korea's medical tourism. Well, in terms of ranking, where do Korea exactly stand? Has OECD been kind to us this time for a change?
Well, Korea is off to a nice start, but it still has a long way to go if it wants to catch up to countries like India, Thailand, and Singapore, which do take up about 90% of Asia's total medical tourism market. And while Korea is ranked in 4th place in terms of medical service, like I mentioned earlier, if you factor in things like human resources or growth potential, the ranking actually drops to 19th in the OECD. And experts say the government simply needs to do more to push for medical tourism.
There needs to be a government-backed control tower specifically overseeing medical tourism. Right now, the support for medical tourism is scattered among different ministries and state-run institutes.
Now, he did add that the recent bill that allows hospitals to build travel agencies or hotels will provide them the chance to garner up capital to enter markets overseas. And also, the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry said this week that the government needs to lift regulations so that investments could be more freely made on hospitals.
Well, you know, we have seen remarkable growth in this industry over the past decade or so, and in an age which health matters are of growing concern among many, I think it makes sense that the government go to that considerable length to attract more of these medical visitors.
Well, Leanne, thank you so much for joining us and providing with this comprehensive report.
No problem.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
From actors and sportsmen to government officials and researchers, dozens of people from all across the globe will be in Korea for the next couple of months to take part in a cultural exchange.
They have been invited by Korea's Culture Ministry to build a global network by taking part in the Cultural Partnership Initiative. Here's our Park Ji-won with more.
80 people from 40 different countries will explore Korea for the next 5 months as part of the Cultural Partnership Initiative program run by the nation's Culture Ministry. Participants will spend that time at 16 different host organizations, including the National Theatre of Korea and the National Kugak Center. Participants will take part in diverse activities from performance to research.
As a Taekwondo player, instructor and a coach in my country, this is a very good opportunity because Korea is the main part of the Taekwondo, heart of the Taekwondo, especially Kukiwon, and I'm really happy to be here as a CPI member.
I'm a theatrical performer. I make sound with my body, sound effect, for example, and I play talking drum as well, traditional drum. I believe I'm going to explore so much in in South Korea.
I came to Korea for research Korean music and culture, and next 5 months I will be in Jeonju at Intangible Cultural Heritage Center for Pacific and Asia region.
Since 2005, nearly 900 people have participated in the annual cultural exchange program. It aims to enrich cultural diversity and build networks among global experts through the sharing of their own cultures. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And this just coming in, North Korea has launched 3 short-range missiles into the East Sea earlier today. And we have this just coming in from the government. And we will have more updates for you on that story as it develops later in our newscast. Well, not a day goes by without some good or bad football action from Brazil, and day 14 of the games was no exception.
I'm still trying to get over Suarez taking a bite out of soccer. Well, our sports correspondent Song Ji-sun is again standing by to ensure we don't miss out anything. Ji-sun, we are already halfway through the 2014 World Cup, and we'll be seeing more teams packing their bags from this point on, right?
2 weeks have already passed since the 2014 World Cup kicked off in Brazil, and only half the teams can remain to play on at this point. We often see football superstars struggle at the World Cup, either because their national team don't have the skills to back them up, or they just get stage fright. This year, though, we're seeing one footballer cement himself as a legend of the game. Now, who else could we be talking about but Lionel Messi? The pin-side striker scored a great goal after just 3 minutes against Nigeria to give Argentina an early 1-0 lead. But Nigeria's Ahmed Musa equalized just a minute after, cutting the Argentinian fan celebration short. Both strikers added another, but Argentina takes this one as Rojo sealed 3-2 victory with a goal in the second half. Scoring in all 3 group matches, Messi now shares the top scorer spot with Brazil's Neymar with 4 goals from 3 matches. Despite the loss, Nigeria advances to the next round as Iran lost 3-1 to Bosnia-Herzegovina. France drew 0-0 against Ecuador, quickly the next round with their European neighbor, Switzerland. Now only 4 spots remain in the last 16. These spots will be filled by the end of this evening in Brazil, kicking off with Group G at 1 p.m. local time. With Germany and the U.S. leading the group with 4 points each, they can both move on to the next round by just drawing the match. But Portugal will be hoping that they don't, so they can seek the next knockout stage with a strong win against Ghana. Korean football fans will once again gather on the streets to cheer on the squad for Korea's last group match at 5 a.m. on a Friday morning, Seoul time. With Belgium already in the final 16, the window is open for 3 countries in Group H. So what do Korea need to do? They need a comprehensive victory against Belgium and for Russia to beat or draw against Algeria, so it's going to be very, very tough. But head coach Hong Myung-bo is unlikely to make many changes to the team that lost to Algeria earlier. He told reporters that he will most likely select under-fire striker Park Geun-hye, who has been struggling in Brazil in the first 11. The phrase he repeated over and over was that his players would do their best. But on the other hand, the Belgian coach is resting his star men since they're already through. Let's hear what the players have to say.
We have one last group match. That's all we are thinking about. We are trying our best to give it all that we can without too much pressure.
We're winning our matches, but we aren't yet at 100%. That will come with time. We'll play better, gain confidence, and win matches in style.
Well, we'll see which of these players stepped off the pitch at Arena Corinthians in Sao Paulo in the early hours of Friday morning Korea time with a big smile on their faces. Let's hope it's Korea. And that was your look at today's World Cup actions, and I'll see you back here with more from Brazil 2014.
Well, I sure hope we see our Ji-sun with some very good news tomorrow. But millions here in this country will be up early to root for Team Korea tomorrow morning.
And hoping that the weather will work in our favor, too.
Right, so let's find out if Mother Nature will be on our side. Michelle, how are things shaping up for the big match?
Unfortunately, the weather in Sao Paulo is going to present some challenges with rain and hot temperatures up in the high 20s. Humidity levels will also be high, which will only make things worse. And for those of you wanting to cheer with your friends, there are a number of places showing the game, including Kowex Mall and Gwanghwamun. And the weather is looking favorable here tonight, but may be chilly, so make sure to dress in layers. And as for the weather conditions tomorrow, they'll be similar to today's, although a bit hotter. And rain is also expected over on Jeju Island and in Gangwon-do province. And going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 20 in the morning and reach up to 30 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 32 and 26 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out over at 24, Dokdo and Mount Keungang both tops in the mid-20s. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Gon-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day. We hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow, but we will have more updates on this, the breaking news that North Korea has fired 3 short-range missiles into the East Sea in our later newscasts. Bye-bye.